You gotta see it. You gotta go.
This is the place to find unique and innovative ideas for your home and yard.
Get amazing solutions for your remodeling, design, and building needs.
Come discover fresh ideas at the Spokane Fairgrounds, October 9th through 11th.
Don't miss the Home Idea Show, where you can shop, compare, and save from the area's top home improvement experts. Enter to win a room makeover valued at $10,000.
Join us for Spokane's ultimate home improvement show at the Spokane Fairgrounds, October 9th through 11th.
Welcome to Startup Spokane, where hosts Steve Traben, Ryan Arnold, and Meagan Garrett explore the excitement and momentum growing throughout Spokane's expanding startup community.
Hello. Welcome to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online, your home for broad and podcasts about everything startup and entrepreneurship related in the Spokane and Eastern Washington region. I'm your host, Meagan Garrett. Today on Startup Spokane, you know that we want to provide you with our region's story of entrepreneurship, how we are creating an ecosystem that's attractive not only to our native entrepreneurs, but also to people who are looking for that next great place to launch their business or grow their existing company, and how we are making Spokane attractive to them. We want to educate you, our listeners, about the resources that exist in our region's ecosystem and how you can plug in and connect to those resources and different ways that can help your business thrive. Today's guests normally share the host microphone with me for the podcast, but today Ryan Arnold and Steve Traben are the guests of our show. And so I'm excited to be interviewing them today and controlling the host mic all by myself.
That makes me feel awkward.
And we also are joined by another guest today. We have Robin Ohlgren with us. Robin is the Southeastern Washington Economic Development Association. She's with them, SWEDA for short. You'll hear us call it that later today. And she has been instrumental the way that Ryan and Steve have been to moving entrepreneurship forward here in Spokane. She's been instrumental in that same way to moving entrepreneurship forward out in the Palouse. And so we're going to hear from Robin a little bit later about some of the initiatives and things that are going on down there. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Meagan.
So Steve, Ryan, and Robin are here today to talk about a new initiative that recently received some funding from our state legislature in the budget that will really be instrumental in helping not just Spokane, but all of Eastern Washington really propel and catalyze their entrepreneurship efforts. And so we're going to be talking about Startup Washington 365 and what that means for our area. Steve, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us just in general, what is Startup Washington 365? And how it came to be.
Yeah, sure. So about 2 years ago, Avista, Department of Commerce, and GSI really came up with kind of a proposal to the governor's office, and this was to support the governor's initiative for creating jobs in all across Washington, including rural communities. And we saw this as an opportunity to put in front of our legislators an opportunity for them to appropriate us with some dollars so that we could take the type of work that Ryan and I and other stakeholders have been creating here in Spokane and really build that out or expand it into the rural communities, not only in our region, but across the state of Washington. And so we created, initially it was an ask of $1 million, and our hope was that we would create 4 different rural centers for entrepreneurial success. And to kind of define Center for Entrepreneurial Success, if you think about the co-working space that Ryan and GSI manages, which is Startup Spokane Central Co-working, if you think about that kind of physical space and putting that in a rural community, say in Eastern Washington, and then having an individual like Ryan that's in that space and in that region, that's really the connector, convener, facilitator, that's really what the model was. And we were unsuccessful the first year, but in the second year, we were successful in getting legislative support for a one-time $250,000 appropriation, which was short of the $1 million. But what we did is we really reduced the scope down to 2 rural centers for entrepreneurial success, and so we have actually been appropriated those dollars. We've identified 2 locations, one in Asotin County, which is in the Clarkston area, and the other in Whitman County, which is really the Palouse. And we're now directing most of those dollars toward the staffing and programming of activities there. We will talk later, if you'd like, about some contributions that have been made by Walla Walla Community College in Clarkston. and the Crimson Commerce Club in Pullman, who have made physical space available. So that's it. For me, it's a real catalyst to get our regional efforts underway and a way for us to then continue to build upon that.
Excellent. And so, Robin, your role is to be really that, like Steve said, connector, convener, facilitator in one of our centers for entrepreneurial success out in the Palouse area in Pullman. And so maybe you could just introduce yourself to our listeners, talk a little bit about your primary role with SWEDA, and then talk to us a little bit about what your role will be with Startup Washington 365.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Yeah, this is a great opportunity for us on the Palouse. We have a lot of great technologies coming out of the Palouse and our two universities there. And what's good for Spokane is good for us and vice versa. I think we can bring some talent and ideas to you, and you can bring ideas and talent and capital back to us, and a bigger pool to play in. We really like the idea of working together as a region. So I'm the Whitman County Director for SWEDA. My office is in Pullman, and I work with all the communities in Whitman County, coming up with ways to make our communities more resilient and economically viable. And I also co-chair the Palouse Knowledge Corridor, which is a regional effort to promote our economy and our region. And so some of Steve talked a little bit about the space that I'll be working out of, that I'll be doing some of this Startup Washington programming out of. And the Crimson Commerce Club, or the C3, is a co-working space that is ideal for doing this kind of programming and this initiative. So we do networking events. So I really divide, I sort of think of the kind of work I do, I divide it up into three groups. I do entrepreneurial support, and bring awareness to entrepreneurship, and also try to give access to our entrepreneurs. So the kinds of programming that we do, networking events and workshops. I do a monthly Cup of Joe, which is a entrepreneurial networking support network. And one of the projects I'm hoping to start is office hours. Bring in experts who will spend an afternoon in that space and have one-on-one consultations with our companies. With the Palouse Knowledge Corridor, we've got a 5-day entrepreneurial boot camp that happens in the summer, and we also have fall and spring business showcases. The next one's coming up October 15th, and it's a way to highlight new businesses in our community.
So we have talked on this podcast specifically with Ryan and Steve and I and a lot of the guests we've brought onto the program about some of the great companies that we have here locally in the Spokane area and what's happening here with the startups that we have in our area. And I would love it, Robin, if you could share with our listeners some of the types of companies that you're interacting with at the Crimson Commerce Club and in some of your programming. What types of startups and entrepreneurship are you seeing out in your area?
So one of the companies that's there right now in the space that has membership in the co-working space is Co-Optical, and this is an eyewear that helps monitor your insulin for diabetics. It's it's a really high level medical device, and they're in the middle of NIH grants, and they're really just starting to commercialize. They're making their first hire this week. They wrote me yesterday and are very excited about that. We have BioCement is a company that works, it's a microbial chemical process that helps stabilize soil, and they're actually doing field trials with Avista, and they are working. So they're just in the middle of commercializing too, and raising money through grants. A couple of our new companies that we're going to profile at our next business showcase. We run the gamut. We have a new catering company that's going to serve wood-fired pizza called Hearth of the Dragon. We have Bevy 360, which is a patented technology for working with elders, and they're going to be presenting at our next business showcase. And then we have a Gear Exchange and Fly Shop, which is a new retail shop that is a sustainable, community-based, environmentally friendly option that fly fishermen can use.
Fantastic. That sounds like a lot of really exciting entrepreneurial activity out of the Palouse. We are going to take a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit with Ryan about how GSI and the Spokane area are going to participate in SW365. We'll be right back.
Congratulations! You found where Spokane Talks online. Tell your friends.
Hi, this is Kent Adams, co-host of Business Talks. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of friends, Lisa and Alan Gwaltney of Window World. I've known Lisa and Alan for a number of years and know them to be honest and caring folks. They take pride in their windows, sliding doors, and blinds. So when it comes to your home, call them direct at 509-456-5880. That's Window World of Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. And if you tell them Kent sent me, they'll give you 5% off a 5-window installation. Call them today at 456-5880.
To help you be safe, Washington state law requires you to call 811 2 full business days before you plan, for example, to dig, drill, plow, pull from, or pound anything into the ground. Be prepared to provide the operator with the correct address, cross street, and a description of your work. You must mark the dig area with white paint. The operator will inform you of the utilities notified of your impending excavation. Wait for all their marks. Be safe and dig with care.
Ever spend hours searching for a receipt, tax return, or college transcript? Some papers can be tossed immediately. Others should be kept safe for years. How do you know what to keep and what to shred, and for how long? Get a practical guide to filing your paperwork at the STCU Money blog at stcumoney.org. Then mark your calendar for the October 15th Shred Day, where STCU will shred confidential records for free at selected Spokane and Kootenai County branch locations. Federally insured by NCUA.
Every Friday in the Spokesman Review and 24/7 on the web and your mobile.
What to do, where to go, 24/7.
Spokane7.com. Powered by the Spokesman Review.
Welcome back to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online. I'm your host, Meagan Garrett, and we are speaking with Ryan Arnold, Steve Traben, and Robin Ohlgren today about the Startup Washington 365 initiative, which gives some funding into the Eastern Washington area to help propel entrepreneurship and startup activity forward in the Eastern Washington area. Ryan, I'd like you to hop into the conversation now and tell us a little bit about how Spokane specifically and GSI are going to participate in the SW365 initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. So Startup Washington 365 is about urban to rural linkages. And so rolling out this idea, Spokane was sort of the first urban center that we're working on. And it's great because Startup Spokane's been rolling for about a year now. And we've been building a lot of resources in the Spokane region. But we also wanted to be inclusive to the rural ecosystems around us. So this program really tagged in well to that vision of what Startup Spokane could be to everything around us. And as Robin said, what's good for the rural areas around Spokane is good for us and vice versa. So we really believe that at Startup Spokane. So how we're really plugging in as we build and roll out this program, I mean, some of the resources we have in the Spokane region obviously aren't scalable to some of the rural communities, things like financial capital. We just went to the Spokane Angel Luncheon today, and that's a great example of something we have in Spokane that really wouldn't happen in a rural ecosystem, but at the same time, we want them to plug into that and be aware that that's a resource for them as well. So there's things like that. The other things that we think about are mentorship. So we have just a great pool of mentors in the region, and a lot of different programs tap into those mentors. Startup Spokane is one of them. SCORE is another program out there that really taps into mentorship in the area. But we want to make sure that those rural entrepreneurs also have access to things like that as well.
And I know, Robin, one of the other things that we've talked about, that this rural urban linkage and this really collaboration between you and Ryan and the director of the other Center for Entrepreneurial Success down in Asotin County, you guys will work together on is coordination of events. And I know one of the things we've been talking about is the coordination of things surrounding Global Entrepreneurship Week coming up in November. So can you talk to us a little bit about what's happening there?
That's right. So there's a statewide website that we all can submit our events to. So it gives our small communities a little bit of access to that kind of media attention. So the events don't just happen in Pullman. In Pullman, I'm going to do we're going to do a marketing workshop and networking event in the C3 space, the co-work space, and the focus on that is going to be web optimization and the cost of doing e-commerce. But then out in the smaller communities too, Business Showcase and Ice Cream Social is scheduled for Rosalia, and a marketing workshop and networking event for entrepreneurs in the Damon Barn, which is an incubator and gallery and workshop space for artists. So we're doing a variety of different programming for GEW, for Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is November 16th to 20th.
And the nice thing about it is the rural communities, Steve, right, that we've selected to work with are close enough that if someone in Spokane was interested in the entrepreneur event, or someone from Pullman wanted to come and experience what we were doing here in Spokane, it's close enough that they can really do that and experience these events in these different areas.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really the key. We were very deliberate in picking the communities that we did to start. And one of the things I want to share is that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if Robin is putting together a certain type of programming in the Palouse, then we should take advantage of that same programming model for Asotin County and perhaps in Spokane. So they're not all off on their own, trying to create their own programming. They're really intended to work the two rural communities with the urban core. They're encouraged to work together and do that programming together, if that makes sense. And so one thing I want to make sure is clear, this is a 2-year pilot program. It's intended as an outcome for us to create a model, this model of how an urban ecosystems work with rural as a mesh network, and use this model and take it back to the state legislature, hopefully get more funding so that we can actually replicate it statewide. And that's really the intent. When we had broad legislative support, I mean, the legislators on the west side of the state are just as excited about the future prospect of this coming to their area as well.
And I know as we think about and talk about that model that we're looking to build with this 2-year pilot and where would we take this program next, one of the things that we'll also be evaluating for looking at the next sites is looking additionally at the additional reasons that we selected the 2 sites we did, which is their proximity to the educational systems that they're close to, WSU and Pullman, and some of the contributions from the Walla Walla Community Campus in Clarkston. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Just as you said, I mean, we have, a major research university in Pullman. We have another research university 7 miles away from that in Moscow, Idaho. In our work, our regional work, the state line is not a boundary for us or a barrier. Now, while we have funding coming from the Washington State Legislature, Robin will be drawing, just as Ryan draws people from from North Idaho into some of our programming and events, and we want to encourage that. Some of the success stories already are coming out of, say, the University of Idaho. So working identifying communities that are in proximity to the colleges and universities in our region is very deliberate. It's where we've got a great number of ideas coming out that we want to harness, that we want to capitalize on. We want to help give them the support so they can be successful and sustainable. And Nessotah County is a little bit of a different demographic. It's a much smaller community. Walla Walla Community College has a branch campus in Clarkston. They actually have an Avista Center for Entrepreneurship, but we picked that county because of its proximity to education, but also because it is a smaller community, and we want to make sure that the model we're creating kind of considers all of the different variables we might encounter over this 2-year period.
Excellent. And I know that as we talk about continuity of this program after the 2-year pilot and building on this, not just for Eastern Washington, but for implications across the state, I'll open this question to the floor, and any one of the three of you can hop in on this. I know that this initiative is part of a larger initiative to build out a bigger system, and that the funding here is also part of other grant opportunities that are being pursued for like programs. And so can you guys talk a little bit about some of the other grant opportunities to build upon the foundation from SW365?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the first stab at it. Absolutely. This is a small scope of work. It's a large amount of work, but in terms of what we intend to do, we really want to broaden it to the north, to Stevens County, to the east, to Kootenai County in North Idaho, to the west in Lincoln County and Adams County, and even further down south. And so we have actually submitted grants to the USDA. We submitted a grant to them in February, and we're submitting a grant this week to the EDA for their I-6 Regional Challenge. Both of those grants we're submitting as we're asking for $500,000, and that would allow us to go into 4 rural communities. And, you know, this $250,000 from the legislature is not a lot of money. It basically provides about $67,000 over 2 years for each of these 2 rural locations. So in order to get more money to help them be sustainable, I mean, the grant pursuit has to be top of mind for us.
Mm-hmm. So we are almost out of time here, but one of the things I want to end on is we talked a little bit at the top of the show about these centers for entrepreneurial success. And I think you really could liken the new Startup Spokane Central co-working space to our Center for Entrepreneurial Success here in Spokane. And there's an exciting event that we have coming up there, right, Ryan, on the 15th of October. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit to our listeners about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. We do have an open house for Startup Spokane Central. And for those that haven't been following along that closely, we opened Startup Spokane Central about 3 weeks ago. And brand new space, about 2,500 square feet. We have room for probably about 50 individuals to be working in there, and that ranges from tech startups to mobile workers to anybody else that really just needs a place to work. And we're doing an open house on October 15th. It's going to be about 5:30 p.m. is when we're opening the doors, and it's going to be a great time. We're going to have the mayor there, Steve Stevens from GSI, and a few other guests that are going to come and say hello and kind of inaugurate the building itself and what we're doing there. So yeah, an exciting time, and it's open to anybody who wants to be there.
And where is the new building?
The new building, thanks for asking, is at 610 West 2nd Avenue. So it's right next to Taste Cafe, kind of on the south side of the railroad tracks in downtown Spokane.
Excellent. Well, this has been a really exciting program today. Thank you guys for coming and sharing with us about Startup Washington 365 and the great initiative that's going to be to propel entrepreneurship forward, both here in Spokane in our urban area and then in the rural areas that we link to support in Nessotah and Pullman County. I want to thank our listeners, of course, for joining us on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online. You know it's your home for resources and information about the Startup Spokane ecosystem. You can access this podcast and lots of other valuable information, including upcoming events like the Open House and our Global Entrepreneurship Weeks, both for the Spokane area and our rural friends, on the startupspokane.com website. And you can always join us for future Broaden podcasts as we talk to local experts and entrepreneurs and learn from their experiences. We will continue to keep our listeners informed about support resources and ways to help you effectively navigate the ecosystem and access what you need to be successful entrepreneurs and launch successful businesses here in Spokane and across Eastern Washington. Thanks for joining us.
Startup Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. We wish you a great and profitable day.
Here's a simple way to stay connected on the go. Join KHQ on Facebook and Twitter and be a part of the conversation. Just like KHQ Local News on Facebook or follow us on Twitter before your next stop. Experience why more people follow KHQ Local News than any other station in the Inland Northwest. Be the first to know about breaking news, weather, and all the stories creating a social media swirl. Sign up, sound off, stay connected. KHQ Local News, right now.
We are kids of all ages, learning about teamwork and friendship. The triumphs we experience aren't just about the final score. Rather than wins and losses, we learn, grow, and thrive. And when we play together and support each other, we become healthy, happy, and strong. Join YMCA Youth Sports and become part of something greater than a team. Call 777-YMCA today.